half past the hour, okay? Half past the hour of 11. And every Monday at this time, every single day of the year, except for a few days that Wiebe would, have to be away. We've had the conversation on how we can fix the power situation in our dear nation. I'm not trying to rhyme, but that's the reality of what we've been experiencing for the past 11 months this year and even more, for 2 years now. And today's another episode, being the very last in the month of November. Incidentally, we do have a special guest joining us on this episode to discuss increasing access to clean and affordable energy. But first, let me bring to you my co-host, Wiebe Boer. Hi, Wiebe. How are you doing? Good morning to you, Wiebe. Good to have you.
Good good morning, Collins. I can see you're already rushing to get out the door. I mean, you're saying it's end of the hour already. So, but give us 30 minutes at least, please.
I know, right?
Collins, we chatted about this, but you saw that the entire grid was down for about 3 hours yesterday.
I'm telling you.
So 200 million Nigerians had no power at all from the grid. I mean, and that's obviously why we have this show and why this is so important. So, it's not sustainable.
I'm telling you, Wiebe, when I saw it, I'm like, and then the thing is, in a worse situation that is already bad, and then you now hear that kind of experience. I was just like, when are we going to have this? And thank God that some right-thinking people who are very forward-thinking and thought of a power solution program like this. Trust me, Wiebe, this is a very, very impactful element on radio, indeed. And very timely at that, even though I say it myself. So, yes, we do have another guest today. Would you do us the honors, Wiebe? All right, Wiebe, you there? Can you hear me? Yes, okay.
Okay, sorry, my connection was a bit off. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. All right, so let's jump in. And we have guests on this show that are from the private sector, social sector, but also the public sector. And I think it's always important to know that government is a full partner in trying to solve this problem, right?
Yeah.
And so today we have a special guest, Aisha Abba Kyari. She's the portfolio manager for the Nigeria Infrastructure Fund at the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority. So that's NSIA, Nigeria's sovereign wealth fund. So Aisha, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, look, Aisha, it's great to have you here. And I always love it when we have women leaders in this space because I think the power sector was traditionally dominated by men. But as the guests on this show are majority women. And I think it's because it's women that are actually trying to lead the way to solve this problem. So let's kick it off. Tell us about your professional background and your career journey to where you are now, running, the solar projects for the Sovereign Wealth Fund. How did you get there?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Wiebe. So, like I said, I don't know if you caught it. I said the future is feminine. So, if you want anything to work, you need women in there leading the way. Trust me.
We're on board. No problem. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
we
indeed.
can. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. Just a little bit about me. My name is Aisha Abba Kyari, and I'm an Associate Vice President and Portfolio Manager with the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. I work within the Nigerian Infrastructure Fund of the NSIA. Prior to being here, I worked in contract management at the Niger Delta Power Holding Company for a couple of years. And before that, I did a very short stint at the central bank where I worked with one of the special advisors to the governor on economic policies. So that's kind of my professional background. In terms of education, I have a degree in chemistry, which people find very shocking, seeing as I'm doing what I'm doing now. But we all know, what you study in school, who cares? And then after that, I went to do a master's in international business management. That's pretty much me.
And now you are the portfolio manager at Nigeria Infrastructure Fund in the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. Now, a lot of people don't know about the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority. Tell us on a high, indeed, what the agency does and what your role really is.
Yeah, sure. You're right. A lot of people don't tend to know who we are, what we do. I'd like to say we hide in plain sight. We're small but mighty, but we are there. So the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority basically was created by a National Assembly Act, which was signed into law by the president then, Goodluck Jonathan, in 2011. And basically, it's the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund, what it is, and it's owned by all tiers of the government. So you have an ownership share where the federal government have 45.8%. You have the state government with 36.2%. You have the local governments that have 17.8%, and then the FCT with 0.16, so whatever the last bit of percentage is. So that's the shared ownership of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. So its first board was inaugurated in 2012, and by Q3 of 2013, it had begun operations, and with a seed funding of $1 billion, which came from the excess crude account. And then we got additional funding between, I think, 2016 and 2017 of another $500 million dollars. So just a little bit about our operations. So NSIA kind of is anchored on it's like on a threefold mandate where you have three separate funds. So firstly, you have the Stabilization Fund, which is more of a short-term fund. And as the name suggests, basically, it's a fund that will that is supposed to bring stabilization to the federation in times of economic distress. So, for example, obviously, with when we went through or are still going through the COVID pandemic, I don't know if you guys may or may not have actually read that the federal government actually drew down from that fund about $150 million, which is an example of what that fund is to save in times of economic distress. And then secondly, we have the Future Generations Fund, which is, again, as the name suggests, this is more of a long-term investment where it's to provide like a savings base for the Nigerian people for when, the hydrocarbon reserves run out. I know we don't like to hear this, but we will run out of oil eventually. And so that's the intention of that fund. And then lastly, you have the Infrastructure Fund, which is also a long-term sort of fund. And the mandate for this fund is to enhance sort of development of infrastructure through investing in domestic infrastructure, so within Nigeria. So that's pretty much the three funds under the NSIA. And also NSI has also undertaken a few strategic presidential initiatives. So there's the PIDF, which is the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. There's the PFI, the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative. So within the PIDF, you have, I'm sure you probably would have heard this a lot in the news, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway,
Right. We lost the connection there just when she was wrapping up her response to Wiebe's question, or is it my question? Wiebe's question, or mine? Well, the internet, we lost the connection just a while ago. If you are just joining us, you are listening to Nigeria Info 99.3, and we're speaking to Aisha Abba Kyari, portfolio manager at Nigeria Infrastructure Fund and Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority, the NSIA. Yes, we lost the connection just a while ago. But I think you pretty much covered the last question very well. So Wiebe's got the next as we proceed.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So Aisha, that's a great summary of the NSIA. It's one of these amazing government agencies that we don't hear enough about. So it's good to hear about it. But tell us a bit more about the Nigeria Infrastructure Fund, which is the part of the NSIA where you sit. And we'll get to the solar projects in a bit, but just on a high level, what are some of the examples of the projects you guys are working on, particularly, in the last year or two, so that, again, the listeners can get kind of a connection between the projects they hear about and the NSIA?
Yeah, sure. So as I didn't realize I'd lost connection, I hope you heard when I spoke about the NIF and what it is. So NIF, is the Nigerian Infrastructure Fund, which I'm a portfolio manager within. Which basically the role of NIF is to sort of categorize one, growth of key sectors, two, to sort of support projects that have national importance, a little bit about the ones I just mentioned, PIDF and PFI. I don't know if you caught that. And then also thirdly, to attract foreign direct investments for all the projects that we do. So what happens is we have a lot of sectors that we dabble into, but particularly in NIF, we have 5 focus sectors, one of which is healthcare. We have agriculture, motorways, gas industrialization, and of course, power. So those are our 5 focus sectors. Of course, we invest in things outside of that. We have what we call sectors of interest, but these are the focus sectors. In terms of, for example, healthcare, I don't know if you know about the NSIA Luth Cancer Center that was actually developed alongside NSIA with Luth, and was commissioned by President Buhari last year. There are patients there being treated, which is up and running. So that's been very successful. They also built a diagnostic center in Kano State and one in Umuahia. In terms of agriculture, we have a fund where we are partners with UFF of South Africa, etc. So those are the sort of examples of projects that are being done. So the NIF is also anchored sort of, and I would say in 3 pillars in terms of how we do our investments. So first of all, it's either direct investment strategy, where you have an existing project already, existing infrastructure projects, which we just invest in. Secondly, the co-investment strategy, a bit like what I just spoke about with the agriculture, where we invest in a fund or form a partnership, whether it's with DFIs or with other sovereign wealth funds, etc. And lastly, sort of the creation of institutions to also sort of take care of infrastructure voids. So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, what we do under the NIF.
Well, that's really to describe what you do. Indeed, we say small but mighty, like Wiebe mentioned the other time. So we know that the NSIA, all right, that's is currently driving its energy sector strategy. So we want you to tell us a bit about this strategy, and what is this strategy primarily focusing on?
Okay, sure. So as we all know, and obviously the reason why we're here, we know the energy sector is a sector in distress in Nigeria. And obviously a lot of people have different approaches. There isn't really like a one size or one correct way of approaching it. But in our case, and as I'd mentioned also, that's one of our focus sectors at NSIA. In our case, our approach is kind of based on sustainability. In the way we approach it. So our belief is that Nigeria's energy crisis sort of lies in having sort of a balanced approach to the energy mix, and also harnessing the strengths and advantages of the various regions we have in Nigeria. Again, our strategy is two-pronged. Primarily one on solar, which I can tell you a little bit more about. And secondly, also the development of gas commercialization projects such as LPG, gas to power, etc. So just a little bit of what I just mentioned about sort of drawing on the comparative advantages of the various regions. For example, in northern Nigeria, we have a lot of land mass. There's a strong solar irradiation. I think there's probably about, I read about 15% more sunlight up north than there is down south. So we have shorter rainy seasons, sparse cloud cover, and these are all ideal for solar power generation. So it's about identifying that, taking advantage of that. And then when you go further south, sort of south of the River Niger, you have the case of having a lot of natural gas resources and also infrastructure for gas to power. So it's identifying the strengths of different regions and sort of harnessing that. So I think that's just our approach anyway, to sort of being a part of solving the power issues.
Wow. All right, thanks, Aisha. And I think the approach of gas in the south, solar in the north is definitely the strategy that we all have to employ to kind of close this gap in power. But tell us now specifically about the 10 megawatt solar project in Kano that you're leading in NSIA. As far as I know, it's the largest solar project currently being undertaken right now in the country.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have to celebrate that. So yeah, tell us some of the details. I know people would love to hear it because it is actually quite exciting what you guys are doing.
Yeah, no, definitely it is. Yes, I am leading a 10 megawatt solar project in Kano State in Kombotso local government. So just to take it back a little bit, in December 2018, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, appointed the NSIA as funds managers and also to develop and construct a 10 megawatt power plant. And so that was our mandate, build this power plant. And so far what we did, the first thing we did was NSIA set up an SPV, which has an ownership of between the federal government, state government, and then Kombotso local government with 80%, 15%, and 5% ownership respectively. And then we named the SPV Haske, which anyone who's listening who speaks Hausa knows that that's a word that is synonymous with light in Hausa. I think Dr. Wiebe, you definitely do speak Hausa. And which we thought was very fitting, seeing as the plant was going to be in Kano State. And so one of the first things we also did was we procured sort of ESI consultants, technical advisors, legal advisors, and project managers through public procurement. And we obtained land in Kombotso local government where the plant is to be built, which is about 24 hectares, more than we need. So that was very useful. And in terms of like status of where we are with the project, so, we've all the technical and sort of ESIA assessments and technical assessments have all been completed. A steering committee has been set up that we meet very often just to sort of drive the project, which has, members of NSIA, state government, local government, etc. And obviously funding for the project has also been secured. So right now we're at a point where we're currently procuring our EPC and O&M contractors. So hopefully by Q1 next year, we would have onboarded those guys, and by Q2, we're hoping to start construction. So hopefully we're looking to, by Q2 2022 or Q3 2022 at the latest, we would have fully developed and constructed this 10 megawatt plant in Kano State. And as you said, we're very excited because this will be the biggest solar power plant in Nigeria. So it will definitely be a big deal, and hopefully you guys will join for the commissioning.
Great, fantastic. Gas for the south, solar for the north. And that's been playing in my head, Wiebe. But let's go back to the solar on the north. But the project you just talked about is located in Chalawa and Kombotso local government in Kano State. What is peculiar about this location? And are there plans to expand the location to have more? Tell us.
Sure. So in terms of this particular location,
okay,
had sort of appointed us to develop and construct. So they actually had already picked the location and done all the studies, and that is where they mandated for the plants to be built. Okay. But actually in the Chalawa area, there's an industrial cluster there. And they, I think that definitely would have played a huge part in picking, because they will definitely benefit from the power coming from the plant.
Mm-hmm. So are you expanding? You have plans to expand?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you are probably going to be one of the first to hear about this. We're currently actually developing an NSIA Renewables energy platform, in which the plan is to basically deploy about 250 to 500 megawatts of such projects in incremental basis, 10, 20 megawatts solar plants, repeat it across the country in different states. So right now we're developing a business plan, still very early stages, and hoping to partner with DFIs and private sector companies to, make this come to light.
Wow, that's a very hopeful thing to hear.
I think you need to do the shaker, man.
Yes.
That's huge. So
It's indeed a very hopeful thing to hear.
In 5 years, if the whole grid goes down, Aisha will still be giving us enough power that will be okay for the day when it's down. So thank you, Aisha.
Well, hopefully the grid will not be down in 5 years, but if that is the case, absolutely.
Yeah. But listen, so back to the Kano project, maybe a little bit more detail of, because it's actually, I mean, it's, I think people need to understand it's more complicated than just putting up, 10 megawatts of solar panels, right? You have to find a buyer for the power. It has to be a buyer that needs the power during the day, but maybe has some backup at night when the solar is down. So how is all of this coming together? Because I know that's what makes these projects complicated. And it's not like you just put the panels and then you run with it. It's a lot more that goes around it.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I was going to speak on that. Just don't want to get too technical on you guys. Okay. So initially, actually, so the straightforward approach, which is what we were going to go to, was to build the plant and sell the power to the disco, the Kano disco, who are called KEDCO, and through embedded generation, very straightforward. And that was looking likely, but unfortunately, as time went on, discussions with KEDCO did begin to stall. And obviously, you being in the sector, I'm sure you would have heard about the new CBN regulations and stuff. So that kind of slowed things down. I think they got cold feet, understandably, which meant we had to kind of change our approach as to how to offtake the power. Because we don't want to be another government agency that builds a power plant, commissions it, but actually nobody's getting power from it. So it was important for us to actually make sure that the people are getting the power. So we kind of went for an alternative offtake, which is named the franchise approach. Fairly new, but has been tried and tested very well in Lagos, I think Ikeja and Abuja as well, and where basically the disco sort of carve out a franchise area and for the franchisee to run in terms of operating and metering, etc. So that's, we still haven't signed one or two things, so I'm not, speaking in as much detail as I should, but that's the approach we're taking, just to make sure. So it's not just generation, we're now taking care of the distribution end of the project as well to make sure the people actually get the power. And like you said, with solar, you have to, sort of augment a little bit and have backup in terms. So, there's a nearby dam who are considering, bringing a bit of hydro to augment that. Yeah, of course.
All right, guys, we have like 5 more minutes. No, like 3 more or 2 minutes. Listen, that to go. And we do.
He always cuts it down. He always cuts it down. He always takes our time.
We do have that. But this conversation gives me a whole lot of hope, and that's the idea of the program, to let us know who's the worst about the situation in this very must. But before we go, it's a serious question for me. Right, the platform hopes, your platform hopes to create 500 direct jobs. Tell us more about this in 2 seconds.
In 2 seconds?
The time is up.
Okay, in 2 seconds, the answer is yes, it will. But yes, in longer, I'll be really quick. Yes, the platform, aside from things like clean energy, increase of revenue, and sort of socioeconomic growth, one of them is job creation, because in terms of constructing and operating the plants, you will have to hire people. And that is one of the things we expect from our EPC contractors, to hire locals in construction stage. And during maintenance, you have people to clean the plants, etc., the panels. So there's so much that is done, during construction and also later on in operating and maintenance. And definitely there will be job creation, because you need people to do that. Because you don't have people out there already whose job is to clean panels. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it will definitely create jobs. So there'll be a lot of impacts then. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Great. So if I can ask one final question. So, we are in Lagos. The majority of our listener base is in Lagos. Yeah. So how do Lagosians get the NSIA to make sure that part of that 250 megawatts of solar is in Lagos? What do they need to do? Who do they need to call?
They can write us, call us, share with us their enthusiasm. And because we're already, earlier on I talked about 15% more sunlight up north, but really the sunlight's everywhere in Nigeria. The solar power in Germany, for example. So, it's fine. So it's very easy. We'll see if we can work together. It's important for the states to get involved. For example, Kano State actually gave us the land that we're building this. So, if states do their own part, show their enthusiasm, help with like licensing or identifying land, etc., then, we're there in a heartbeat. We're ready. So that's the plan.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Aisha. Great to hear. I think, again, it's great for the listeners to hear such a articulate person in government in such a great organization that's doing amazing work. And you've also given, I think, the listeners a challenge. If they want you to come to Lagos, they have to do a little bit of work, but you're ready to come. So I hope they listen. You might get some calls today from Lagos. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for taking time to be with us today, and have a great week.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Great to expect my call. Guys, that's it on Power Solutions today. Wiebe has been my co-anchor. Our guest has been Aisha Abba Kyari, Portfolio Manager at Nigerian Infrastructure Fund, Nigeria's Sovereign Investment Authority, that's NSIA. What a conversation that was. Next week, Monday, I may not be here, but we will be here indeed. But we do have another episode of the show. Join us then. God bless you. God bless Nigeria. Stay tuned for more lovely programming on Nigeria's #1 for talk. My name is Collins. Teke, bye Wiebe, bye Aisha.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.